Good morning, everyone. Wow. Good morning, everyone. Hi. I am so excited to be here today. We've had a lot of conversations living up to this moment, of course. My name is Sahar Shirzad. I'm a program maker, and I would always love to present talks here and there as well. And I have a legal professional background, and I've been active on issues surrounding refugees. But I know that you all did not come to see me today. This talk was very quickly sold out, and I see a full room, and we all know why we're here today. We are here for Ai Weiwei. We are at Kunsthal today to also proudly present a large-scale exhibition by one of today's most prominent artists, activist, and critic of authoritarian power systems. Ai Weiwei, can I please welcome you to the stage to have this talk with me? Can I have a round of applause for him?
Hello. I think better you sit on the side because of my earrings.
Of course, yeah. I'll just switch our glasses.
Okay.
Here you go. Ai Weiwei, welcome, and congratulations with the opening of your exhibition. Today is, of course, also the opening, and everyone can go and see it today. How do you feel? You opened yesterday, and today is the official opening also for the audience. How was that for you?
Well, I feel, I don't know how do I feel, but I think people here are very passionate. I think they like to sense to have some meaning or relate to self-expression or human rights, so all those issues, I think it's the right place to have this right show.
Yeah. So you think in the moment today, these issues really, really matter, the ones that are within the exhibition itself as well. I mean, it's the biggest collection retrospectively of your work throughout the years. And it always fascinates me because you're often, and this was also in your introduction of how I just introduced you, you're often perceived also as an activist. Would you say you're an activist more than you're an artist, or the other way around?
No, for me that's one thing. It's never been either artist or activist. I don't know why. Of course, they have all the reasons to separate it, but in my case, it's one. I can never separate to say I'm artist, not activist, or I'm activist, not artist. For me, art is about to act, and also to act with art is, I would not even call it is good at act. So
yeah, because I myself am also active in the art culture sector. My roots lie in Afghanistan, for example. And I've noticed that when people come from places where there's oppression or a regime, and you create anything, you're perceived often quickly as an activist because of the environment that you're from. So did you choose the title activist, or was that bestowed upon you through?
No, I never choose as an activist. I still don't understand that well why someone has been named as an activist. That means, even with any reason or political beliefs, those beliefs are very simple. It's not nothing profound. It's just very essential values. So everybody should be an activist. So why someone be named as an activist? That means he professionally doing nothing but just act. I just do not have that kind of concept.
Do you think it's also related to privilege?
Privilege for what?
So when people who make art do not come from places where there's oppression, they are not quickly called activists, is what I've noticed.
You talk about artists?
Yeah.
I don't know the other artists. I cannot judge them. But for me, the art is also always involved with reality and with philosophy and moral judgment. So it cannot be separated.
Yeah, because there's also a quote, maybe you guys will see it back in the exhibition as well, but definitely in the catalog, everything is art, everything is politics, is what you stated. And I also heard in an interview of yours that you said that a sense of belonging is important to one's identity, but also that you treasure that you have a sense of being from nowhere. So do you ever wish not to be any form of identity, to keep the focus only on the art itself? Or is identity important in your work?
You mean self-identity?
Yeah.
Well, as individual, we live this life, and without self-expression, we simply have no self-identity. So that's why I'm an artist, and that's why I'm so focused on free expression. I think that is a very essential property of life. And how do you prove you have been living through? That means you have a different opinion, you have a different attitude or expression, and that we can. If it really belongs to you, that's an individual identity. And without that, and I think you lost very essential meaning of life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've noticed going to your very early works, you lived in New York in the 80s, and they say, well, I don't know if this is the case, that you were also influenced by... Thank you. I will tell you later if I gave permission for you to take that picture of me, but we'll get there.
Yeah,
in the Netherlands, they're very strict on the privacy issue of taking pictures. And we'll check with the audience consent later. So, back to your work in the 80s. The idea of Warhol as well is when one is an artist, then everything one does is not just a part of one's artistic persona, but also a part of your artistic practice. And one of your only exhibitions in your time in New York in the 80s was All True Safe Sex. Also, they say to champion in finding objects as a response to the panic around AIDS in those days. And I've noticed you absorb the time and current events that are happening, such as the refugee crisis, or I would say the lack of humanity instead of the refugee crisis. And it has always translated in your work. So from the panic around the AIDS in the 80s to now, is this a conscious choice that you make, that you continuously absorb what is happening in the world and around you? I mean, you could also make something super abstract in your fantasy that has nothing to do with what's happening on the silly earthly things to say.
Well, I was born in a family. My father studied in Paris in the early 20th century. Then he went back to China and been sentenced for something like a subversion of a state power. So 6 years of sentence when he was just 21 or 22 years old. So later he joined the revolution, and they established this China today, like New China. But that's 1949. So 80 years later, 1957, that's the year I was born, he was criticized as the rightist. As a writer, he holds up his beliefs in literature and poetry, but of course that kind of independency are not being welcomed by the party. So he was sent into labor camps. And I grown up with him in labor camps, for so-called re-education.
You also wrote a book about this, about him and
Yes,
his life
I
story.
did wrote a book about 1,000 years of joys and sorrows, trying to reflect that time. But the reason why I'm doing that is I have to find out where it come from.
Yeah.
If I write action, I have to asking how I become a person like today. And so that is quite a long journey. I have to look at what happens to my father, what happens in China, and what is different between China and the West. And I'm still searching this, but there's a core concern about besides the ideology or different culture or different political systems. The most important thing to measure it for me is humanity. It doesn't matter how we can see how different we can be, but still we only have one humanity there. So it can be measured about different religion or different race, cultural background. And
Do you practice a religion? Do you believe in God?
I don't practice religion. I have no chance to get into any religion. When I grew up, it's a communist society. There's no space for any religion.
But sometimes you have a counter reaction when you get out of that system. Let me ask it differently, where do you find solace? Some people find peace in praying, or I don't know who, by the way, read the book, 1,000 Years of Joy and Sorrow. Maybe you can, I see a few people already read it. And then they would know that your life was, it's nuanced to say not easy. How did you process your history, and how do you put it so beautifully into your work?
Well, I don't know it's beautifully or not, but I rarely use the words beauty. I more use the words, it's my expression. Basically, if I look at it, I would always questioning if it's that relevant, or if it's necessary, or if the language fit into the expression. It successfully carry out my emotions or my judgment or not, and or it successfully can build some kind of right communication. So those are questions always in my mind, but I never care about beauty, because beauty is one element. It's not I don't like beauty. I love beauty. I love flowers or nature, crowd or ocean. But I don't think the sense we are creating, so-called creating artists, can even match with the nature. No artist ever done a work can compare to a piece of leaf or grass or a flower or nature. So it's a wrong competition for artists just trying to seeking for beauty.
Yeah, what I was mentioning is that it's beautiful that you found that self-expression and the process of everything you went through and everything that you observed, that you're able to put that in your work. Whether it's beautiful, I leave it to the audience indeed. And you're very right. You're absolutely right that we cannot compete with the beauty of nature. So that's beautifully put. Let's go to your future work. We were in New York. You also did study of perspective series, which is still greatly appreciated and was very inspiring. And it's still so important. Could you maybe describe in your own words to the audience why this work became so big at those times?
Well, in the 1990, such a long time ago, and when the collapsing of the Berlin Wall, and of course we also had the 1989 the Tiananmen Square. So at that moment, we think this is the end of the Cold War. But I still think, people are celebrating because this is so-called the end of a Cold War. So that means the end of the ideology conflicts. But I still think there will be still conflicts in the future. But for me, the ultimate conflict is between individual and state power, or economic power, or even cultural power. Those things are always existing, and things it's not going to disappear in our lifetime. But how an individual can defend its own identity, and so I have no answer, but I have that awareness. So I did this silly photos. It's really bad photos of some
Did you
kind
say really bad photos?
It's not. I would not even call it a photo, but it's really processed as photo, and just filming my left fingers, middle finger in front of those.
So you
well-known
put your fuck you finger out to
left finger, not right finger.
Not right finger. Oh, was it?
Because this is very important.
Oh, that's the important thing.
Because my right finger I have to hold the camera, So I have to do
Can
like
you do
this.
Yeah, this is exactly.
That's how the photo come out.
Okay.
You see.
Can we make one together? That is not a bad photo. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
it's
so simple, very easy.
Okay.
And,
but you did.
I did those just take much less than a second, and it's attitude. It's nothing. But I think the state or powerful people or they can destroy everything. They cannot destroy individuals' attitude. It's not possible. So that's my final castle.
Yeah.
And at that time, I'm not being called an artist. I'm far from being an artist. I'm a poor student hanging around. And later also, I never imagined I would become called artist again. I did many other things, publication, the underground books, organize exhibition shows for other people, creating things, and also I become architects, self-taught architects. So many years later, maybe 10 years later, I've been gradually giving art exhibitions. So I have to find out some artworks from the past. So I gathered those middle finger photos together. I think one is not powerful enough. So I need so I did maybe hundreds of them. So we select a group and called the study of perspectives. That's the story. And it's really silly work, and it doesn't mean to have any meaning, but rather just my attitude. So.
Yeah, but you are mentioning something very important. When individuals are being destroyed by a system or oppressed, what you have left, you said, is that attitude. And I think that the way I interpreted it is you channeled and mirrored an emotion of many of us. There's a lot of people who would want to have the guts to put out that finger and be silly, and also it's a statement. Would you agree that you channeled an emotion that a lot of people were carrying because it reached a large audience?
It's almost like tragic. People recognize it as art.
Yeah.
But still, I think that's our essential rights to express ourselves. But that is not enough. But that work become popular. But still, we need a more deep explanation or argument about why we are doing that. So it's because I did that. Then as a revenge, I have to sit on here to give some explanations. That act was very casual, but this is not casual. It's really very formative.
Yeah.
I see people outside, they said they cannot get in because all the seats are booked. So I thought that there's a lot of space, but they said, no, we cannot get in, okay. You know, we always have to work with the system. System is something self-protection.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is, that is the case.
Yes, and I think that this, I think almost sense of unapologetic attitude that you need to carry in order to also question these systems that I find very interesting. I know you since your documentary Never Say Sorry, and I was, I think, 20 and started being politically active here. Didn't notice that it had anything to do with my roots, and then a lot happened in Afghanistan. And then I realized that what you did back then was so fundamental. And I also remember that you utilized the internet back in the day to mobilize people, so I saw in the documentary. And you've always been very intrigued by the internet. And you've utilized so many different methods to reach people, to bring out this exact message that you just said, which is keep questioning the system. And that you do something so casually, but then it turns into something so big and formal, which makes us question ourselves just now. Like, what are we doing? We're standing there in line to see this talk, but what systems are we supposed to question? Now, would you say maybe, how do you make those decisions in what methods to use to reach people, such as the internet that you're so intrigued by?
Well, first you have to have this need to say, I cannot be silenced if I facing this injustice or those unbelievable situation. So then you realize you have a voice, but it takes very long in this communist society. When you have a voice, you can be easily crushed, like my father or his generation, millions of people, only because they have a different attitude, they lost their life. So I guess I'm quite fortunate. By 2005, the state internet server said, well, we should have an internet and a blog. So I said, I never touched the computer. I don't know how to type. They said that would be too easy for you. So they forced me to open a blog called some kind of well-known people's blog. So once I started to be on it, I cannot stop. You know, I easily can get involved with something I cannot stop. So then gradually I become a very well-known, outspoken person about every issue. And of course that the authority hated it. So when we did the investigation about the Sichuan earthquake and trying to find the students who lost their life, you know, who are they, and you know, just details of their life. Then they shut off my blog. Then suddenly I become silent, because then you realize without internet I can never really, even I have all the thinking or all the willing to take the risk, it's not possible, because there's no such medium. Yeah,
and by the way, you guys are also allowed to ask questions. I wanted to leave the questions to the end, but I think that if you have any burning questions relating to the topics that we are discussing just now, just raise your hand and I will be in communication with, I have two assistants with microphone. They will come to you. You're also allowed to ask your question just to make the conversation a bit more lively from your end. So we were talking about methods, and you just mentioned that you, even if you start a blog and you became a well-known voice and were censored, when you went back to China also to do your artwork, but not a lot of people knew, and I didn't know this either until I also read your catalog together with this exhibition, is that you started with painting in New York. And can you bring us to the young Ai Weiwei in New York and the moment you decided to put down the brush and to expand to different forms of expression?
I
always find that fascinating, the moment artists put down the brush and decide to do something completely different.
Thank you. You're the first one asked that question. I did many interviews, but that's a very crucial question. At the beginning, I studied art, and it's not encouraged by my parents. Even my father is one of the best painter and poets, and he never encouraged me to become an artist because it's very dangerous. Being an artist means you're dangerous to the society. I only know that from my father's experience, but I can see him as a very kind man and with all the best wishes for his people and nation, but why he's being seen as so dangerous and has to going through such a unbelievable time. And if anybody interested should read the book. I write 1,000 Years of Joys and Sorrows. It's I try to put down the record.
And please read the book, because I also heard you're not really fond of writing, so it was a very challenging process for you to wake up every morning and to write. So I always
thank you. That will save a lot of explanations about those issues, and the questioning about why I give up painting as an artist. And I started painting in Parsons, which is a school in New York City. Then quickly I was quitted because I lost my scholarship because I didn't answer the art history task. So then I just become an artist on my own. That means you...
Did you say you lost your scholarship because there was an art history test you didn't pass?
Yeah, I didn't write even one line because of my language is not equipped me to really answer, about Picasso's girlfriends or on all those situations. So I think if I cannot fully express myself, I better not to even say a word. So I signed my name, give a blank paper to the teacher. It's a big class, almost like this. So everybody see me walked out, and that's the end of my school days. So I never really graduated. And because they don't give me, it's not tuition free anymore, it's too expensive for me. So I still struggle to paint and do painting because, I can be a good painter, but every time I move, in New York City I moved about 10 times. The first thing I have to throw out is my paintings, because quickly I will pile up my apartment with a lot of canvas. And if you move to a new location, the first thing
And you have to move a lot when you're in New York.
Yeah, so I keep throw away those paintings.
Yes.
And it's like you keep throw away your girlfriends. And,
Have you thrown away a lot of girlfriends?
And then you don't have interest in girlfriends anymore. Yeah, because you throw away a lot.
Yeah.
And so that maybe makes that
simple. So are you
simple.
saying your paintings became wasteful, so...
But conceptually, after I approached what Marcel Duchamp's approach.
Yeah.
I think I'm more fit into so-called conceptual art.
Yeah.
That means you don't have to do anything. You can use the words and the language and your concept to come up with any forms. So which liberates me. Yeah.
Do you? Is this torturing for you that we are in need of so many words in this talk now? Well, actually, the concept itself for you is way more interesting. How do you experience this interview then?
I always appreciate thinking. I always love writers. I always think most important human ideas come from thinking and writing down those as a result.
Words.
Yeah.
So from changing apartments and having to throw away your paintings and altogether your brush, and coming to concepts and to sold-out rooms where even people are waiting outside to see you, you've been also very critical and provoking at times to the establishment of the arts. But we can also say that you're part of the establishment now, because you became, maybe willingly or unwillingly, a very big artist. And what also always struck me is that there's this element, this almost rock star element about you, also for the young artists, that you're so rebellious. And people who are rebellious have always this rock star element about them, and that's why the artists I talk to and the young people I talk to that are inspired by you, this is what they found very cool about you until now. But now, I asked around because I was allowed to write down questions for today, and I asked also to my generation, like, what would you ask Ai Weiwei? And they said, how does he see himself as a part of the establishment now, or is he still rebellious against the system of arts, the art world itself?
Well, let me make the maybe comparison. I would always flirt with the establishment. I would never marry establishment. It's.
Do you also apply this to your love life?
Never. But flirting is my nature, and establishment is what I don't like that much, but I can flirt with it. I also flirt with my enemies, not even establishment. As an individual, you always have to testing. You are not living in some kind of isolated environment. You're part of the political conditions, and only by work with that, then you can have your opinion or your attitude is relevant.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to commit suicide. Yeah.
And what is your next step in this influence that you have? Because it's a very influential role to have, okay, let's say not a marriage to the establishment, but the flirt you have with the establishment, and the establishment is very interested in you. You have this large audience now, and what you say matters. What is your next step in this influence you have? Because people obviously listen.
Well, yeah, that's a concept people always divide, current situation or future or past. For me, that's also always one thing. I would never understand myself or society without understanding the history, the past. There's no other reference. And, everybody has their family roots, their culture, where they come from. Same as me, I always think if I look at the past, I have so much to learn. It's all there. But if we don't look at it, and we think we just living in the present situation, which is a bit absurd, because you still don't know, where you come from, then then of course the future is unpredictable. And we all know it's unpredictable. Everything happened as a surprise. And might be a much bigger surprise. But nevertheless, we cannot have an excuse not to understand where the path we come from. We already walked so far. You can be 20 years old or 60 or 70 years old. So the only thing you have is your memory. It's not how much money you have, but your memory, your relations to others, your that's we call it humanity. And the future, I don't know. I cannot really predict what the future is going to be.
Yes, yet you do touch upon things maybe willingly or unwillingly that are relevant for our future, such as that we are faced with the worst crises when it comes to people on the move, the refugee crisis ever since World War II. And when you capture that, because you have a photo exhibition of Lampedusa, we see it in Human Flow, you do confront people with future questions that if we continue with this, you also call it moral deficiency, what will the world look like then? So I think in your work, that's the future I see in your work. But let's go back to the answer that you gave, because you say we all have a history and we're all rooted in this history. That's why maybe you wrote a book about your father, I think, to also go back to your own history. Do you push yourself to utilize almost every possible way of expression?
I would say so, but the problem is our capacity of our mind or our knowledge, even the information we have, is still very limited. Normally we think, okay, with internet we can easily know everything. But at the same time, because the internet, we know nothing. Because we are not really exercise or, we're not doing what we think we know. So that means we give up the very essential meaning of knowing anything, because we're knowing something to help us to act. And if we're knowing something not to help us to act, why we have to know it? So it's very big contradiction. And when we say, okay, we are facing big crisis, because of the refugee situation, because the war, Russia invaded the Ukraine. I think we are really look at the things very fragmentally. And in human history, there's always a cruelty, always actions against the rationality, or only the rationality belong to one belief, rather than, can be accepted by different parties. So we are still the same, human nature never really changed, even we are in the fast development of the scientific development but still the human nature is a human nature. And we were facing even more unpredictable with the fast development of the science. So it can be...
Can I ask you something
yes.
about human nature? It's interesting that you say that, because and while I'm posing my question, I'm also looking in the room. If there are any questions, you both should assist me if you see any. I've been in search of this question as well, because I did human rights law and then tried to give it a creative spin in the art and culture sector. And I've always been lingering to this question of love thy neighbor. It's in every single religion. Do to others as you would do unto yourself, Confucius once said. So in every thinkable faith and religion, this is a big thing. But in humanity, we never achieved this equality. Ever since humanity existed, inequality existed. So we never reached that part where we treated everyone as our neighbor or treated everyone as we would treat ourselves. So my question always is, who is our neighbor? Who do we see as our equal? If we look at how refugees, for example, are treated right now as well. So to your opinion, in this human nature that you say, will we ever achieve equality? Is this the moral deficiency in humanity that you see, that you're also eager to expose in your work?
Well, it's a very large issue you're talking about. And let's talk about nature. You know, in nature you have different trees, different plants. They can coexist. They don't have to kill one another. You know, of course in nature there's evolution, there's some kind of competition there, but rarely they cannot coexist. Of course they have animals have to kill each other. But I don't think humans are so much different from we are part of the nature. We're just our ability being so much developed or exaggerated by our imagination to think we can dominate. And this is of course related to some kind of human nature, which have fantasies about the human's ability to dominate, in the economic sense, political sense, and that always created as a fundamental mental set to create the problems, because we are no longer to think human are created equal. Life should have the very equal opportunity to approach happiness, or to be treated right. So if we look at the politicians today, why we have to mention them, because they basically dominate the group, the living quality or intentions. So you really to see anybody is really have any ideology or have any, it's just they trying to dealing with problems which much bigger than they can solve. And it creates a big mess everywhere. And it seems all those things are not solvable. That's why we have to go back to the basic quality everybody can share with, is humanity. We have always asked every act, is that can benefit or protect the humanity.
Yes, and you mentioned politicians, but I mean, there's a question there, I'll get to you. You mentioned politicians, but I mean, the people vote for politicians, and then also you can question the democratic level that we're in, where you are. But I think that there's also a responsibility on the people's end who vote for these authoritarian politics, who keep our borders closed or open. We have an election coming in the Netherlands, for example. And I think my question is also about the training of your compassion. Who do we see as our mirrors, as ourselves? Because, for example, you mentioned Ukraine. And when Ukraine happened, our borders were wide open in the Netherlands. But before there were Syrian refugees and Afghan refugees, and refugees also from the African continent. And they were treated very different than white refugees. So this question is also about maybe racism, but also about how do we train our compassion in a way that we see everyone as our neighbor, and not only people also who look like us, because that also influences how people vote and for what politicians you vote. Yeah, would you say that in your work, do you try to tackle that question also of compassion, the morals of the what people have and base their voting also upon and their actions upon?
Well, I as an artist, my work is very limited. It's limited because my personal experience, and also because my shallow understanding or judgments. So I don't think that can be a good example, but still, and you basically, I think those things you answered in the questions, this kind of so-called discrimination or injustice, not just toward refugees, but almost toward everything, and it will always exist. We have to recognize that it's a coexisting quality of humanity. So that's why we have to always try to find better ways to dealing with others or to suit ourselves.
Thank you. And there's a question from the audience. Could you please speak close to the mic, because we're also recording, and if you are willing, introduce yourself, but I leave that up to you.
My name is John Silvis. I want to ask you a question about a work of art that you showed last year in Venice. It was a large chandelier of 6 meters high, or even more, presented in the Chiesa of San Giorgio, and I admired it very much. But the theme of the work was memento mori. And my question to you is, I think, especially in the conversation that you had now, how important is the reference to the moment that people can reflect on living and dying? Thank you very much.
I think the work you're referring to is a 9-meter high chandelier made by Marona glass by a very nice friend, Bolingo. And the company worked for 3 years to achieve this chandelier. So I've been doing chandeliers for quite a long time. Chandeliers always resembles this kind of rich and part of establishment. And the basic of the chandelier are structured by human skeletons, bones, and also some mystical features, but they also relate to surveilling cameras, teeterbirds, and handcuff. So the basic idea is to try to integrate my own experience with the understanding of the human history, and because before that time, I was dealing with refugee situations and made films about refugees. So I visited about many nations, about 40 refugee camps, interviewed a lot of people, hundreds of people. So I just trying to find out what make a person become a refugee, why they have to leave their home. Even their home can be very poor and very remote, but what pull them out from that ground? So there must be a reason. They're not a refugee born as a refugee. They all had homes. Nobody willingly to leave their home, even in poor condition. So what is the reason for them to make this absolutely very heroic decision to bring their children on a boat or to walk in the woods, in the mountains or woods. And many of them are sacrificed their life. And also they are very intelligent people. They are very brave. They know they cannot be accepted by another culture easily. It will take 2 or 3 generations just for them to adjust themselves. So that's a question in my mind. So with my experience, I think I should structure, a visual presentation, because I've always been called as an artist, and there's people all ask me to have exhibitions. So I want to make some difficult work, like a 9 meters big chandelier. You cannot even hang in here because this is less, maybe 6-7 meters. So very few institutions can even hang it. So I ended up hanging in a church in Venice. That's where you see it. And the reason when we started to do it, this is before pandemic. And of course, during the pandemic, we see a lot of deaths. Millions of people lost their life. Then Russian-Ukrainian war started. And also, so far it's about 500,000 of casualties. And of course, when we talk about numbers, it's so easy, just the number. But the number only become real when we have a shooting 2 days ago or 3 days ago in this city. Then we realize, that is very dangerous. But the danger is always there. And it's just everybody, somebody else is a casualty. So normally it would not affect us to have a cup of coffee or to have another dinner party. So, that's artist. It's with very limited resource to present some very big issue,
Yes, and how do you question your own morals when making art? Maybe also perhaps out of the misery that faces the people, like refugees. For example, I was brought here as a kid, also as a refugee, by my parents, just as you described the bravery. The parents have my father's right there, who brought us here, sitting proudly front row. And I've always questioned myself, because I lived in refugee camps here in the Netherlands. I would have really hated it if anybody would take pictures of me and it would have been published today. I would want it to be taken out. How do you question your own morals when you make work also with photography or images of people? I have a legal background. We will talk about this consent
You're
later.
dressed so well, and you put the makeup, so you're sitting on the stage. It's a contradiction, Yeah, it's, I don't pretend I have a legal, moral, how do you call the elite or absolute rightness. I'm part of the victim, So you have to put down yourself, not to think, okay, all my judgment has to be right.
Yeah.
It's not possible. No single judgment can be said is absolutely right.
Yeah.
You do what is your intuition, and you. Of course, we all make mistakes all the time, but my lessons is not try to be absolute or perfect, but to keep moving. That's only lesson in the life is keep moving, and why you have to care about the other people, how they judge about you.
But my question is about how you judge your own morals.
No, I can't, because
yourself.
even I sleep in my very comfortable bed. It takes me a while to see if I sleep this way, it's comfortable, then I realize it's not comfortable enough. Then I turn this way. I will turn maybe 50 times before I fall into sleep, and I would wake up in the next 2 hours. It's never really, you cannot find this position. It's not possible. So of course, you have to be conscious about your moral judgment. But I think to be very moral is dangerous, because we see the society today, they're trying to become so-called, I don't even know how to call them. Sometimes they call it woke. I don't even know the words, but still, you see people trying to grab this kind of absolute rightness in dealing with many social issues or even environmental issues. But if I look at it, it's very much like a cultural revolution in China. You're trying to say, I'm the right one, you are the wrong. And they are not admit, I am you, you are me. If you're wrong, we're all wrong. And if I'm right, that's not possible. So that would create this kind of so-called moral eliteness, which you can see in Cultural Revolution, and also see in the 1930s Nazi movement. Think about it.
If you say Nazi in a country like this, yet if you go to those camps, you still have to process the fact that they remain there, and you go to that comfortable bed that you can 50 times, move. I'm also wondering how you have the resilience to go to these places and
No, I think we cannot, dramatize or to romantic the how do you say, the so-called difficult situation. Mm-hmm. I live in the much worse situation in the camp.
Yeah.
While growing up, you see this on my phone.
Yeah.
You see the black hole. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's much worse than the camp. I stayed with my father for 5 years, between my 10 and my 15 years old. And camp, at least you have iPhone now. You see my iPhone situation there. Yeah. The refugee arrived, the first thing they would unwrap their plastic and call them home. I'm arrived, so come over. So one way in this black hole, there's no telephone that time. There's not even water or electricity. So, but still we have a comfort there because we have a family. And we still think we are protected by the earth. In the winter it's not too cold, in the summer it's not too hot because we're under the earth. So I think, it's, if you are in the very absolute comfortable condition, it's not necessarily comfortable. It's really our mental judgment.
And let me check with you if there are any. Yeah? Let's go to the back. Yeah.
Wake up.
Hi, my name's Tui. I wanted to go back to a topic from a few moments ago. The conversation has travelled far since then. This is a room full of privilege. I think there's not many people in here who would disagree with that. And...
Disagree with what? She said disagree with what?
She didn't say disagree.
What she says, I couldn't hear.
This is a room full of privilege.
This is a room full of privilege.
Okay.
We are privileged enough to be in this room and not in the line outside, for a start. But what we were talking about earlier with
inequality, yeah.
Equality, recognizing humanity, recognizing nature. And this is a time of human supremacy. The thoughts of human supremacy are very central in our systems. Over nature and between humans. In your reach as an artist and your experience as an activist, do you see a way that we will be able to decentralize ourselves, to accept our part in the system, to accept the equality of our humanity?
I guess the question is asking me.
Yeah. Do you want to repeat the question?
I think we have to. I'm not a philosopher, but just in relating to your question, I think we first have to say our human condition is not a perfect condition. We're just another species, and we're dominating in this planet, and we're basically ruining the planet, and because when we're dominating, a lot of species are disappearing. And also we use all the so-called natural resource. It's not really made for us to use, but anyhow, with this kind of I don't know, you call it a trend or tradition, and we can see the end is a suicidal. So we are not talking about morally how right or wrong. We just to say if that can last, with this kind of fast, basically capitalism development, and with this huge competition between nations and the development. I don't think there's a better future in front of us. So the philosophy is needed. That means we have to look at the life or universe as one, and to say what is more suitable for the situation. And of course, people today, very few people asking those kind of questions because they all want a quick answer. They all measure their success by numbers, and nobody, really think about the more profound meaning of why we are here, and how much time we're giving, and what we did is right or wrong.
Thank you. I saw a few questions. There's one over there, and one here. Yes?
Good morning, my name is Robert Portuguese. Just a moment ago, you explored the relationship between art, activism, and beauty. And in these times, or recently, we've seen activists actually vandalizing pieces of art, trying to draw attention to their causes. What is your take on these developments? Do you think it's legitimate for activists to actually attack pieces of art to achieve their causes? A little bit the opposite approach that you've taken with your way of work.
This really relate to individual cases. I don't know exactly. I only can reflect on this kind of tendency to destroy part of existing works, or even part of our human history, and trying to erase those, the traces which not really can be judged by today's moral judgment. So I think it's, for me, it's unacceptable to destroy other people's property. This is basically, there's a law about all the properties. If it's not belong to you, if it's public property, no individuals should to interfere or even destroy it. Doesn't matter under what kind of argument.
Speaking of destroying art, 2 years ago, the Taliban takeover happened in my country. So a terrorist group is now basically at the head of my country. And when that was happening, also a lot of artists had to destroy their art. And you're not allowed to express art anymore in Afghanistan. So your cultural heritage is being destroyed. So I spoke to an Afghan artist, such as Dawud Hilmandi. He's an up-and-coming documentary maker here, but he went back to Afghanistan to make documentary. He had to destroy a lot of his work also and had to leave it behind. And I asked, what would you ask Ai Weiwei, because he's also a great fan of your work. And he said, what are your suggestions to artists who fall into the feeling of hopelessness about the future of arts, especially coming from countries where we have to destroy our art? And, well, where you are, the art that you make is not often exhibitioned in where you're from, and your cultural heritage is mostly outside of China than inside of China. So what words do you have to that situation?
I think destroy art is different from self-destroy art. I destroyed 100 vases because that's my property. I bought it, so I have the absolute judgment about I keep it, worship it, or I destroy it, and of course, I bear the consequence. And of course, in my situation, the government destroyed my 2 studios and also some works. But I always say art is not the end, but the beginning. We cannot just see a form being destroyed, that's being destroyed. That's why I think, the destroyment itself is meaningful. Why authoritarians are afraid of those peaceful, not even protest, but just existent. So I always think when that happens, that means they give you a special opportunity. So you should not judge by the common value judgment, okay, my work is destroyed. So what? The work never exists before even.
So you can start all over again. Art is the
Of
beginning.
course, art is not it's continuous evolving.
And you see,
Nobody can really destroy a real art. It's not possible.
Or maybe the artist who can start over.
No, that artist who is crying about his art being destroyed, he should not be an artist. He should do something else to make a cakes or make a cup of coffee or something,
So that is the advice you would also have for young artists?
What?
Is that the advice you would have for young artists that would listen to you and see you as a role model?
I don't care what they say me about. I don't give them shit.
You don't give a shit.
I don't care the young or old. It doesn't matter to me, right?
We had a question over here, all the way in the front, from perhaps a young artist.
Who is the young artist?
I don't know. I should not judge by looks, but might be.
No, I'm not a young artist. I'm Shirley Ebbing. I'm a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador for the fight against racism and discrimination, and perhaps I will become an artist one day. So I see that we unfortunately discriminate each other over and over again, but I think that learning a language can bridge those gaps. For example, I'm learning Chinese to find my own roots, and I see how it enriches me. How does learning a new language for you, for example, English, enriches your art? Thank you very much.
Thank you for that question. It's I don't dare to say beautiful anymore. That's a very interesting question, and beautiful.
What is the question?
The question is, how does learning a new language enrich your life, such as English that you had to learn? Or wanted to learn?
Well, learning a new language for me. It's processing. It's like a climb a mountain, and also for me as a Chinese to learn the foreign languages are like climb a mountain in raining days. So if I have my expression, talk in Chinese, it'll be at least 5 times richer and more meaningful. So I almost like play Lego. Lego only have 40 colors. Doesn't matter, what kind of painting I'm structure, it's limited to 40 colors. I realize even most complicated images I'm making, I cannot even employ the 40 colors, but rather 20 or 30, some even just 5 colors. So that's my advantage as an artist. I can use very limited resource to structure maybe a charming elements. When we don't use enough language, we call it poetry. So probably that's my way of understanding verbal communication. So.
Thank you. There was a question over there in the middle.
Hello, I'm Tenzin. Why are your eyes so wide open on the photograph?
What's the question?
Your eyes, you keep them open
Oh.
on the photograph, on the poster of the exhibition, actually.
It's not a good gesture. I don't like that either because when I grew up, we never even wash our hands, not for every day, but even every month. I remember for years I never take a shower, so use the hands to rub your eyes. My mom always tell me, don't rub your eyes, because we never wash our hands, So this come from a magazine I think from England. They asked me to do that gesture. Very few times I would perform the way people ask me to do, but since they want to put a cover, they ask that. I was in China in detention, so I did it. But I really regret because that being a poster everywhere.
Wait, are you saying this picture was taken in detention?
I was self-detained. I cannot allow to leave China.
Okay, so you
I
were
supposed to do a
yeah.
magazine editing the whole issue or something like that. So yeah, I feel really regret to use that image because most people see that image is scary, and sometimes they see the image, they cannot recognize me. So it's such a waste, yeah.
Yes? If you could please walk to the front, because it would be nice if Ai Weiwei could see you and preferably hear you.
Thank you, that's very nice.
I'm Ejam. I met your artworks in 2017 in Sakıp Sabancı Museum, and one of the artworks theme was about the people who died in China, in the earthquake in China in 2008. And I know that the conflict started with the government, that you were having a fight. And it is unfortunately, we have in Turkey, we also have the same problem now with the government and everything. And as a young people, we want to try our best to save our country. And sometimes I'm losing my hope, but of course I'm still fighting for it, and I'm still doing my best. But I just want to ask you, how are you not losing your hope for the country, for your country, and for, I don't know, like Chinese people. I really love my country, and I don't want to lose my hope, of course. And I'm wondering how you are not losing your hope, and you are still continue doing your art and still attending most of the art talks, and you are still expressing yourself. That's why I just want to ask you, like, how are you not losing your hope?
Thank you. The answer is very clear. Why I didn't lose my hope? Because I never succeed. The government will never answer me, and the justice can never be achieved. That protect me not to lose my hope, because otherwise it's achieved, I don't have hope anymore. So to fight with government or authority, the big percentage of the result is you're the loser. They are the winner. And since been proved like that, China till today, they still don't recognize, they will never answer what I demand, just simple answer, just how many people died for what reason. Those things they cannot even answer. So my hope is for the justice or fairness. I think as a society, that's very essential to has to be achieved and protected. So I don't know, I cannot give you an answer, but for me, it's only because they never really answer me.
I'm also thinking that we are, as a Turkish citizens, we also had an earthquake a couple of years ago, and still people are dead, and still it is there, and the government is not doing anything anymore. I don't know why, but as people that we just want to have the basic rights. That's why I cannot use the word of like rebellious for us, because we just demand the basic rights.
And another reason why can't I just cease the fire and not to continuously to struggle, only because I don't want to become part of them. I really look down at them. And I cannot say I will be part of you. So that's why I cannot give up. It's just it's absolutely the bottom line. It's not I want to be morally right. I just don't want to be wrong. So it's very easy to understand that.
I also heard that Thank you. I also heard that you might plan to go back to China. And it's interesting, there was a news article recently in the Dutch newspapers. I always find it very interesting. There are Dutch analysts who made the analysis about you that it's quite dangerous to go back, that you're taking quite a risk. Is that true? Are you taking a risk going back to China? Are you going to see your mother, and do you miss your homeland?
Well, I think the risk is not only in China. Almost the risk is in here too. So I don't see avoid to be back in China is trying to avoid the risk. It's rather I also have other responsibilities. I have to raise my son in a more peaceful time. He is not entitled to be in this kind of struggle. He should be no struggle at all. But I was involved, almost like consciously and unconsciously involved. As a consequence, I had a little bit tense relations with this very big, great nation, and but I'm still holding Chinese passport. I'm a citizen. I'm entitled to be back. It's not because I have any patriotic idea. They have been refusing me all the time.
It seems here that there's this perception that you went away and never went back, that you're in exile. Is that a wrong belief?
You know, people put those titles. I just have to raise my son in a peaceful, safe
place,
area
yes.
for a while. Now he's 14. He's pretty big.
Yeah.
So I was thinking my mom is 90. You know, so I think I should go back to see my mom. You know, it's just so simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's beautiful that it sometimes can be that simple.
Well, I don't really know. You have to you only know by doing it. That's my problem, because I get into all those conditions willingly or unwillingly only because I try to be in the situation and to say what will happen, you know.
Do you miss the sense of belonging in your son? For China, perhaps also, to show him where his parents are from?
He is adult. He can go back himself now, and not adults, but growing up. Yeah. And I think that's his decision. You know.
I think we have room left for one more question. Yeah, maybe here, maybe two. Let's go here first. Yeah, this one over here with the white shirt.
Hi, I'm Cecilia, and I spent my teenage years in China. And I got to know you as well through the Sichuan earthquake, because I was in Nanjing at the time. How do you feel now, like the China that is now post-corona compared to then? Because for me personally, I don't really recognize it the same way. I spent a lot of years in Beijing then, whereas now it's very different. How do you feel about how China is right now?
My experience with China since more than half century, and that's why I read the book. I want to put my experience in a better perspective. You know, what happened in past 100 years in China. So I kind of sense all the things happens today in China, maybe also outside China as West, have a longer historical reason. And that means, you know, the argument are much more based on the nature of their cultural, political conditions. So I would say the communist is probably the only revolution happened in China which violently or brutally cut it off from its own nature or own tradition. So what happens today, so-called post-pandemic or corona area, is no different from 10 years or 20 or 50 years ago. It's exactly the same, and the same kind of philosophy.
Thank you. I have my own personal question, and we'll go to one more question. We still have room for one audience question. I see, can you raise it higher? I see it. Oh, well, you are pretty eager because you stood up. Okay, we'll do you after. Okay, so we had a whole formal interview, and I was allowed to pick my own questions, which was great for me. But I mean, we did a lot of formal blah blah, but I have a very personal question now too.
So all the questions you asked is not
personal for me, no. Not for me. It was all for you. So my father is here, and I haven't succeeded in love yet. So I thought I'm going to ask a question about that. My father always says, never trust an artist as a lover.
That's why I don't call myself an artist. Your father
But I
is
tend
right.
to always fall in love with makers and artists. So do you agree with him? Do you agree that you can never trust an artist?
I just said I'm totally agree.
Okay. Then I will still keep on working
But
on
the
that.
next word is never trust your father.
Okay. And now we're allowed to go to a final question to the audience. Somebody stood up. Could you stand up again? The one over there who had a... Yes, you. Yeah. Hi.
Hello, I'm Jan Willem Springeling. I have a question about your work. In China, you work with a lot of volunteers, the earthquake art you make. How do you get them motivated to work with you? Because I can imagine it's also for them dangerous.
Well, I'm interested in danger. I think danger is a moment to test our humanity. You know, we all become more real when we're in the dangerous situation. So that's why I think, this society, basically, the world, have over 70 years of peace. Basically, we say, okay, it's very safe, there's no danger. We all had a good education, we all become someone, and it's comfort. And but the reality will come when, danger comes. Yeah, so for me, it's a way to find out who we are, what we would make our judgment or action in front of those difficult moments.
Thank you. And a final question from one activist to another. How do you take rest?
I never take a risk. You mean risk or rest?
Rest.
Rest.
In order to absorb and also make new things, but also continue.
My best rest is to be intensively concentrate on something. That's my rest. So I never had a vacation, never have holidays. I don't go to birthday parties or,
You never go see other art?
Basically not, unless something I cannot avoid. I don't. It's so difficult. There's public sculptures everywhere, and people, even architects want to be artists. They always show their buildings, something funny there. But I try to close my eyes, not to look at art exhibitions, art fairs, or,
So you take rest by hyper-focusing on something.
I take a rest by not look at the unpleasant situation, such as art.
Such as art. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Ai Weiwei, thank you
Let's take
so
a
much.
selfie.
Huh?
Take a selfie.
Can we take a selfie? Am I allowed to have these pictures? Because
No.
I will.
No, it's a private.
With the audience, let's do it with the audience. That would be great.
But they are not agree. We take a photo with them.
We don't care, do we?
Aha. We don't care. That's nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.